tech companies can be founded in garages, why can't biotech companies be founded in the backyard? There's almost this mystical bond between women and nature. Especially my didis, they used to tell me about the challenges women faced in particular. We ensure that all the mushrooms that are grown by the women are purchased directly from them at fair market rates. We're cutting out the traditional middleman structure. I felt insecure multiple times. I felt like I was an imposter multiple times. And I had times where I was asking myself, what am I doing here? My mission really is to bring it into the streets, into schools, into every curious mind.
Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Thinkly Talks. On the business and finance community, we have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Samaya Malik, and she's passionate about mushrooms and is the founder of a company known as Mushroomology, which is creating a lot of waves in India. So, hi Samaya.
Hi Aishwarya.
Nice to have you on Thinkly.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited for today's talk.
So, who are you? What exactly are you passionate about? Can you tell us a bit more about yourself so that our community members can, kind of connect with your beliefs?
Sure, I would love to. So, as Aishwarya has already mentioned, my name is Samaya. I'm 17 years old and I'm currently in Pathway School, Gurgaon. I'm the founder of Mushroomology, which is a social enterprise that works on empowering marginalized communities through the transformative power of mushroom cultivation. Outside of that, I am also a bio-activist. And yeah, I also have another venture that I'm working on that I'll be getting to soon in the talk, hopefully. And yeah, super excited to be here and talk about all things fungi. Huge warning beforehand, I am a fungi nerd and I'm proud of it. So yeah, super excited for today. Thank you so much for having me again.
That's lovely. I'm a fungi nerd, but in a different sense, like more of eating than growing. But it's nice to see that there's someone on the other side, kind of taking charge of things and maybe offering us a glimpse of how much potential mushrooms hold. And, beyond just maybe a snack or an ingredient in a dish. So, yeah, Samaya, why don't you tell us a bit about your journey? What is Mushroomology? How did this idea come to you? And you're 17, you're so young, and obviously you have such a bright mind. So for you to conjure an idea like this and kind of take action is really, really commendable. So can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Firstly, thank you so much. But yeah, so to tell you about my journey with Mushroomology, I'm going to have to take you back a little in time to the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the pandemic was something that hit us all hard, all around the world. We were all affected by it. But I count it as one of the most pivotal experiences that shaped me. I still vividly remember, the images on the news of daily wage earners, walking barefoot, basically carrying their entire lives on their backs and just trying to get home. And I wish I could explain the feeling it instilled in me, but it was just a wake-up call. It was this urgent need to take action. And so along with a few friends, I started Impactors, which was my first initiative. And with Impactors, we provided ration and supplies to migrant workers at train stations and in clusters of Saraswati Kunj and Wazirabad and Gurgaon. And yeah, we were able to reach over 4,500 migrant workers. And while you know the inequalities that exist in the system, when you're confronted by it, face to face, that's really when it becomes this deep rooted motivation. And I just knew I had to do more. And, that's the time. It's lockdown, right? Every family is trying to find themselves, like trying to keep themselves engaged. We're all bored. Some people were trying chloe things, workouts. Some people were trying to go on a coffee. While my family chose to grow mushrooms. So yeah, and it was the most exciting thing happening at that time, patiently waiting for the first crop of mushrooms to come out. I think that was just the most exciting feeling we were having. But when I was growing mushrooms, what I realized was that it was a really simple process and a very adaptable process. So I explored further and, I started thinking, okay, about teaching this skill to others. So I began working with like the didis and bhaiyas around me, people who've known me my entire life, really. And I'd always heard, their stories about their life in Uttar Pradesh, the challenges they faced. Especially my didis, they used to tell me about the challenges women faced in particular. They don't own land in their own names. There is really very, very few employment opportunities there. And so they're left with like one last resort, which is to move to urban cities. which is why we also saw this, mass exodus happening during the COVID-19 pandemic. So then I was like, okay, where do I start? And for me, starting in Uttar Pradesh just felt like this natural choice to me because one, yes, I had this deep-rooted personal connection. But it's also a place where I felt, I could make a meaningful impact. I had the space, I had the resources, and I also had that vision to create, a change where it was needed the most. And yeah, all of this kind of just culminated into the birth of Mushroomology. I think the realization had hit me, that mushroom could be so much more than, just a hobby. It could become something that offers sustainable livelihood for others. So yeah, but at the same time, I had to reflect back, to my past. And one crucial lesson I'd learned with my time with impactors was that for social initiatives to truly thrive, they have to be self-sustaining because relying solely on fundraising isn't viable in the long run. So yeah, I wanted Mushroomology to be different. So I came to the circular model of a social enterprise, which balances profit with purpose. Yeah, and Mushroomology, just like Impactors, did start small. But it started with a clear vision to create a lasting impact. And here, I honestly have to be honest here that my experiences working on ground with the migrant workers. And even, the stories I heard from like the Didis and Bhaiyas all kind of shaped my desire to create change. And yeah, so today Mushroomology is definitely more than just about mushrooms. It's become a philosophy of change. And I'm so grateful that we've reached where we have. But I have to say, none of this would have been possible without my team, my program director, Mr. Dilip Gupta, my logistics director, Mr. Dhruv Prakash, Sharma, my program director, Mr. Lavkush, and also grateful for all the guidance I've received. We had doctors coming in from the village, different places, giving us advice. And yeah, I have to agree, it really does take like a village to raise a child, but more so to raise an enterprise. So yeah, that's my journey. And yeah, I'm right now here and I'm really excited and grateful also.
That's really nice. I mean, like you mentioned, mushrooms are, I mean, the way you saw mushrooms, it really held maybe some kind of untapped potential and opportunity that was waiting to be discovered. And getting inspired by all the, didis and bhaiyas who obviously have such a hard time. And I mean, COVID-19 goes without saying was a terrible time for all of us, but it was harder for them, especially given the kind of background they come from and the kind of tribulations they have to go through on a daily basis. So that way we are privileged, and it's really great that you took cognition of those problems and decided to do something about it. Because I think sympathy is something which we all extend to everyone, but empathy and action is something which is still, for whatever reason, maybe lacking. So you decided to, take the prerogative of actually bringing some kind of change via mushrooms, which is crazy. And yeah, so mushrooms, like odd choice, like you said, everyone was gravitating towards something or the other in lockdown. I remember that, Dalgona coffees and bread making was, just taking over everyone's feed and perhaps even lifestyle. It was just a goal at that point in time. So what drew you to mushrooms? Is it because they're not only sustainable, but they have an ecological impact? You wanted to have a, maybe through mushrooms, some kind of grassroots level impact that you can have, not only for the didis and bhaias, but even for the environmental impact that it can bring. So what was the hook factor for mushrooms that kind of, got you on board?
Yeah, I'm actually so glad you asked. So yeah, mushrooms. Okay, at the time of the lockdown, it was just this innovative thing we just thought of to keep us, going. But yeah, the journey with mushrooms has been both a personal one and an impactful one. So yeah, one of the key reasons we focus on oyster mushrooms is that one, they have an immense market demand, and they have multiple practical advantages. And so the mushrooms can actually be easily, dried and packaged, making them perfect for, when you're distributing them along the supply chain. And especially when we're doing a rural and urban gap, right? We're trying to bridge the gap. So for that, this is a very important property. And this ability also allows us to preserve them, so ensuring that they don't like spoil quickly and increases their longevity. And in the communities we work with, which are predominantly vegetarian, raising awareness about the nutritional benefits of oyster mushrooms is really crucial. They serve as a fantastic source of plant-based proteins, something that's often missing in purely vegetarian diets. So they're And they have like multiple, they're like loaded with vitamins, with vitamin B, with vitamin D, and minerals like iron, potassium. So basically, what I like to say is that they're nutrient-packed gifts from nature. And yeah, and their benefits are also endless. Like they lower blood pressure, they lower blood sugar, they boost your immune system and improve your gut health. So it's really ideal for the Indian diet also because it's a natural solution to health problems found common in our community. But also, while that's like the health benefits and everything, there's also a personal story here. I remember my grandmother, she used to cook oyster mushrooms during celebrations at home, and they were absolutely delicious. I mean, I loved them. And they were her secret ingredient to make like every dish special. And I always thought, they tasted so good. And I think that memory really stayed with me and maybe inspired me here also. And if we're looking at it from like, a broader perspective, like you were talking about food security and different issues, mushrooms are an ideal crop for, addressing food security issues because one, they grow quickly, require minimal resources, and can be cultivated on agriculture waste. Like, you take straw or you can take coffee grounds. So it's not only providing, sustainable food source, but you're also creating like an additional income stream for rural farmers. So yeah, actually that gets me to a fun fact I was just remembering. Do you know that mushrooms were actually grown in World War One? Were first cultivated in World War One in Germany as a subsistence crop to provide food during food shortages. So it was really created for that purpose too.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a
it's
fun fact. Yeah, I didn't know that.
yeah, it was even when I came across it because you don't really hear it a lot. So even when I came across it, I was like, this is really interesting. And yeah, even other things about it, it also has a really interesting history. So oyster mushrooms, also known as dingri mushrooms in India, they were actually widely consumed in our traditional Indian cuisine. And somehow, they fell out of favor over time. And now when we think of, oyster mushrooms, we think of them as foreign. And, we relate them to international cuisines, but they actually have like a long history with Indian cuisine. And so related, but we're also on a mission to, bring them back to their rightful place on our dinner tables. And yeah, and the best part of like, I would say mushrooms is also that they're like super resilient crops, making them like ideal when you have a world increasingly affected by climate change, right? They can grow in diverse climates and require very little water or energy. So they have this unique ability, to sequester carbon. So you are
Okay.
also contributing to like a healthier planet in general. So they're not just good for us, they're good for the earth too. Yeah, I'm a huge, I'd warned everyone beforehand, I'm a huge fungi nerd. So yes, I love my mushrooms and I love talking about them.
Yeah, I mean, every sentence you speak is, like let's lean into the nerdiness of it. But also, it oozes so much of experience and knowledge because unless you are passionate about something, you won't bother even reading up about it or getting to know the nuances that are related to it. So, I mean, I'm also a pro fungi person, but in a different way. But glad to know that mushrooms are like fun and they can actually have such a positive impact. And the World War One fact was really nice. I'm a history nerd, admittedly, so just adding that to my list. But yeah, that's really good. And how I see is, mushroomology is basically pioneering this kind of revolution in a way. Like you said, you're not only bringing back a lost ingredient on Indian tables, but you're also uplifting people along the way. Oyster mushrooms, obviously, I think in the last 2 years, I myself have come across, not just being mentioned here and there or just in hearsay conversations, but it's coming back as a cultural phenomenon in a way. But the way mushroomology is approaching this and tackling it at the forefront is what is very refreshing to see. Because at most I've seen, like the DIY mushroom kits that are being sold, which have a fun aspect to them, but obviously we don't know the larger details of where the mushrooms are being sourced from, what conditions they are being grown, how ethical it is, and the nitty-gritties of things. And everyone nowadays is trying to be more eco-conscious. So mushroomology is leading into that consumer need as well, which is nice. So you know if you were to tell people that who are the real heroes behind mushroomology or how many people it has impacted, Are there any numbers you can share with us, or any success stories that you really think has lifted mushroomology from maybe point A to point B?
Yeah, the impact of mushroomology has been incredible, both in terms of numbers and personal stories. So yeah, we now have over 300 women in our network, and we've recently expanded to the Mandoli prison complex, where we'll be reaching over 1,600 inmates, and we'll be working as a part of a rehabilitation program. So yeah, while these numbers are amazing, what really matters to me is the real impact we're making on individual lives. One story that stands out to me is Archana Varma's. So when she first joined us, she was really hesitant and she struggled a lot. And many times she's told me she wanted to quit. But I will never forget the day that, she brought her first harvest of mushrooms just to, to sell to us. And the joy and pride on her face were just unforgettable. I mean, now she's our top producer actually, and has taken up a leadership role in her community. So she's supporting other women who have just begun their journeys with us. And for me, that's the true impact, because you see these women that they've transformed and they've become role models in their communities. And that's how I like to measure the impact of mushroomology. Other than that, we've also been really fortunate to receive some amazing recognition, like winning the Best Empowerment Initiative by the Social Impact Award. We also won the IB Global Youth Action Fund grant. And yeah, and the support we've been receiving is just incredible. And it's also coming from really unexpected sources. For example, Judge Singhal, who invited us to bring our program to the Mandoli prison complex. We didn't really think of it like that, this taking our program in terms of a rehabilitation view. And it has been a huge opportunity for us to even help even more people. So we're just really, really grateful. And yeah, and on top of all of this, we're also about to hit a new milestone. Our products will be in stores next month, so you'll be able to find our dried and our fresh oyster mushrooms on their shelves, so do check it out. But it's so exciting for our entire team, and it feels like we're really making a difference, because not just in the lives of the women we work with, but also in bringing sustainable and healthy food options to more people. But yeah, I have to say the journey for me has really just begun.
Firstly, congratulations. I mean, your product hitting the stores is, I think, a different kind of high that, you get to experience once in a lifetime. So seeing that come to life is really, really special. And I'm glad that, Mushroomology will be available and accessible to everyone. Where people not only can enjoy the product, but they can also, get deeper into the story behind it, and maybe attach themselves to this cause, because it's also a cause in a way, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, it's a philosophy at this point. And the rehabilitation point of view is also pretty interesting. Like you said, maybe like even I didn't envision it, but having people who are in prison, who are kind of on the path to rehabilitate themselves and make themselves better, this is a really good act of service that they can participate in, and they can benefit from.
Yeah.
So
It
it's a
is.
win-win for everyone.
Yeah, it really is, because it's giving them also a chance to, when they come out of, this time that they're spending, they have an opportunity to actually earn money and gain employment in a way that, it allows them to escape this route. Because the number one reason for a lot of people to go into crime is, to support their families, because they don't have an income flow. And this gives them. And a lot of them are people here I've spoken to, they're also the main, breadwinners of their family. And they also have like a whole family waiting on them, for support. So yeah, it's really important for that to have, for rehabilitation programs to exist.
Yeah, I mean, that's really amazing, as you said, because, they're kind of pushed into crime, due to circumstances which are not favorable. So this is a wonderful opportunity for them to kind of flip things around in their favor, and not only rehabilitate themselves, but also support their family along the way. And, impart those values that you don't necessarily have to get pushed into crime or resort to unquestionable things just to you know like earn enough money to put food on the table. You can opt for other opportunities which are much more viable, much more feasible, and much more healthy also in a way. So that's pretty great. I was thinking the women you mentioned, especially the didis who inspired you, and the ones who are now taking charge of things, and kind of one has metamorphosed into a leadership role as well, and she's become the top producer. It's so nice to hear that. Do all of these women come from, like poor families, or, a little bit downtrodden, where they are the main breadwinners, or they're doing this in addition to maybe other forms of income? How is it? Like, how does mushroomology play into this?
Yeah, sure. So the women that we work with, of course, in the jails, we work with multiple communities, but the women that we work with are, yeah, so we work mainly in the Uttar Pradesh belt. Our
Mm-hmm.
setup is in Kadipur, and then we go to multiple nearby villages and work. And yeah, it's a mix, honestly. We do have women that are the main, like I know, there are multiple women who are, the main breadwinners. They've spoken, some of them have lost their husbands, or some of their husbands don't work, or multiple stories that are there, and they're the main breadwinners. So this is kind of something they really need. And then there are also women who don't have opportunities. So they may be, like I know Kiran, she was the mother of four. Yes, and she is a school teacher. She's like teaching all her kids. She is also like participating in, women like initiatives in the villages. But at the same time, she really needs that, extra flow of income to manage her whole household. So for her, she told me this is the best choice for her, because all she has to do is like, spend 2 hours in the day and 2 hours at the night, and she can still get that paycheck at the end of the day that really holds her household together. And those stories are really heartwarming. But that's, so we have like a very different, I think, lot, but yeah, of different women we're working with. But honestly, that's also kind of ties into our model, which I would love to explain a little bit if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sure, the floor is all yours. I'm more interested in knowing your thinking and the whole process of mushroomology. It's really, really fascinating.
Thank you so much. So yeah, mushroomology, as I said, we work with mushroom cultivation, but our model is really built on the belief that true social impact requires more than just good intentions. It really does need a sustainable structure that empowers communities while also being financially viable. So what makes our model unique is that we've reimagined the entire value chain, from cultivation to market, with a focus on the communities we work with. So we're not just, teaching mushroom farming. We're actually creating the system that enables these women to become entrepreneurs in their own right. So at the heart of mushroomology, I like to say, is our hands-on, on-the-ground approach. So we have a very dedicated team that is involved in every step of the way. So we start with, the free mushroom growing kits, which alleviate, the financial burden on the women. But then we also provide on-ground workshops, giving them, the comprehensive training that they require. And then when they, they start growing their mushrooms, we're there every step of the way. We provide mentorship every step, if because we don't just drop our resources and like leave. We want to guide them, we want to assist them. And it's really important to remember that for many of these women, it's the first time they're even hearing about mushrooms or mushroom cultivation. And there's always this hesitancy and their challenges. When they're growing it, they may like not understand if this is the correct way it's supposed to look, so they take like a photo, they ask us. It's a learning curve. But this personal, consistent engagement is really what makes the model truly effective. And I'm also a really strong believer, like, I spoke about them being role models, right? So I'm also a really strong believer of, fostering this sense of community and, continuous learning. So while we've also like created this dedicated WhatsApp channel for the women in our network. So this platform really, really does allow us to, allows them actually to share their struggles, their achievements and learnings with each other. And it creates a support system that extends beyond just our direct involvement. And it's honestly amazing to see how they uplift one another. They celebrate each other's successes, offer advice, and provide encouragement. Like for instance, we have this, the WhatsApp group is always on, so they may post their first crop of mushrooms, and they stand next to it smiling, and you would see those likes coming in, and then they're going to reply to it like congratulations. Or like if someone has a question, they'll answer it, and someone else will reply to it. And it's this community that really builds and reinforces their confidence and resilience, because they're navigating these new entrepreneurial journeys. And yeah, so that's for the learning aspect and how we structure that aspect. But the cornerstone of mushroomology is also its buyback initiative. So which means we ensure that all the mushrooms that are grown by the women are purchased directly from them at fair market rates. So then we eliminate, the local mandis, which are monopolistic in nature. So we're cutting out the traditional middleman structure. We instead provide them, transparent, fair compensation. And, to support this model, we've also established, a drying and packaging unit, which processes the mushrooms, and then it also maintains, the quality standards and extends their shelf life. And then, of course, they're transported directly to urban markets. And then this way, we're also bridging, rural producers with urban consumers. And by connecting, rural farms to urban tables, we've also created this direct supply chain that's benefiting, like you said, both farmers and consumers. So yeah, as I said, we've tied up with grocery stores, and yeah, that's a part, and it's a significant step for us in connecting rural farms to urban tables. But yeah, and overall, this model that we have, it's a social enterprise model. And for us, balancing profit with purpose comes really naturally when your core mission is aligned with community's growth. So we're structured as a social enterprise with a circular model, which means that while we do generate revenue, it's reinvested right back into the initiative. So whether it's expanding, training programs or developing new sustainable products, or even providing resources for the women to start their own mushroom businesses, every profit serves a purpose. So ultimately, it's a model which creates a self-sustaining ecosystem where the profit fuels the purpose and the purpose drives the profit. And it's a delicate balance, but a balance we're committed to ensuring, because that's really what we believe creates the lasting change. But yeah, that's how Mushroomology's model works and how we work. I hope that provided a little bit of clarity.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, at the cost of repeating myself, Mushroomology is very, very fascinating to me because I personally, have not come across a program like this, which, like the whole buyback policy that you were talking about. It's about the women, it's for the women, and it is going back to them. So the elimination of the mandis and generating these opportunities for them is really, really, as a woman myself, it's nice to hear. It's uplifting, and obviously people who can stand on their own 2 feet with their own hard work, that joy is also immeasurable in its own way. So for women from such backgrounds who probably have been told all their life that it's probably they have a very periscopical view of things. It's just you grow up, you get married, you have kids probably, and you then end up in jobs which don't pay you well just to toil away and get some food and money for the family. But this opens a lot of opportunities for them, and it also enhances their confidence in a way. Like you said, the WhatsApp groups and the personal engagement where you get the chance to interact with them and kind of broaden their horizon as well, and tell them that, listen, you have so much of potential and it's not limited to this. You can do a lot more with us. So that's really nice. And I mean, I had checked out Mushroomology's website prior to the talk to, again, get a sense of what you guys do. And it was really sweet to see all of their photos, like up front and center on the website, which is again, like, you don't see maybe the karigars or the farmers or the artisans who are actually behind the product. That is rarely showcased. It's always the final product, which is beautifully packaged, perfectly edited. But seeing their authentic photos there, and almost 80 women, I think, photos, like a nice carousel of them on the website, really felt nice. And it was good to see, the artist behind the art, as they say. So that was pretty nice to see as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, I mean, it's their hard work, it's their effort. They're the stars. We're just the backstage people. They're really the ones who are Mushroomology. They represent Mushroomology. So who better to, if a website serves the purpose to explain what a company is or an enterprise is to other people who are new to it, and who better to explain it than them. And that's where I came from.
So Samaya, you obviously have admitted that you're a fungi nerd and a proud one. But your bio also has something more interesting, which is bioactivist, which is again a very, unique word that stumped me honestly. So what exactly is a bioactivist? And it sounds intriguing. It sounds a little dangerous. It sounds a bit fun. Like what's a bioactivist? What is their focal point? Like, what, can you just decode it for us?
Sure, I would love to. Yeah, I've got that question. I've heard that. So basically, biohacktivist is a term I coined as a way to, describe a fusion of my passions. So, we have the science, we have the activism, and we also have that hacker science approach that I like to use. And honestly, it's kind of been the biohacktivist in me. It's just always been a part of my identity since I was really quite young. I was always encouraged to, view science as a form of play rather than just, a source of knowledge. So I was always told, you can be curious and creative and explore the world around you in like a hands-on manner. And that's who I am. I try to approach everything in a very hands-on manner. Actually, story time. As a kid, I was so obsessed with, making slime. I know everyone went through the slime phases, especially I think my generation had this huge thing about making slime, but I was really obsessed with it. Like I used to spend hours experimenting, with different ingredients to create, different sorts of like textures. And for me, it felt like, this mini chemist in my own lab. And yeah, that was really exciting for me. And, I also found myself drawn to baking. So, which was similar, where I was working, with different types of ingredients. Actually, if you go down my mom's like home videos or a whole old Facebook post, you're going to find this really cringy video of me making cookies where I say, you can make anything. You can make jellyfish, you can make tiger, you can make anything. And well, cringy, but that's just how I was and I am. I truly believe you can make anything. And that fascination of, combining things and seeing what happens kind of evolved naturally now into more complex projects. So my younger days of, fooling around is what drove me to where I am at now, which is with material science. So, as I grew older, my experiments became more technical, right? But my approach really stayed the same. It was driven by fun, by natural curiosity. And yeah, science for me was still that same childhood magic, just in a different body. And as a person, I've always been that why and why not person. Probably driven my family batty and my friends batty by asking so many questions that, they're like tired of it. But this questioning always, it just also made me spend a lot of time with nature, just observing nature. Because I was always like looking at it to find, find answers, to find answers to my questions. And I honestly feel that the best answers really come from nature. It's us, it holds all the solutions, and it's also the place where I personally find, my calm and my quiet. Yeah. And so when I first got into, mycology, which is, and started growing, mushrooms, it was just all of it kind of culminating. And I was just completely fascinated by, mycelium, which is the way, those, white threads spread across a substrate. It was almost like watching, them weaving their own intricate map. And for me, it just felt magical. And yeah, something like right out of a storybook was how I felt. And so, yeah, and then I got so interested in it that I landed up setting up a DIY lab at home. And my mom still laughs that while, other kids wanted, I don't know, clothes and gadgets, I was requesting petri dishes and test tubes as gifts. So, yeah, a little wacky there, but it is me. And yeah, and then I loved reading books, by Paul Stamets and Marilyn Sheldrake. And when I read them, I felt like I was Alice diving into her wonderland. And the more I read, the deeper the rabbit hole I went down. I was just hooked. I was like, I think I just spent hours devouring research papers, academic articles, and probably even wrote like cold emails to professors and PhD students working on this topic. And to my surprise, they actually responded warmly. And I found myself in conversations with experts who are using fungi in all sorts of groundbreaking ways, from bioremediation to unconventional computing. And I mean, I have to say, it felt like I had found my tribe. And yeah, so every conversation after that kind of just fueled my passion more and more and more. And so now I think calling myself a biohacktivist is my way of saying that I'm someone who loves to mix curiosity with purpose and to explore science, not just for knowledge, but also for real impact. Because science can do that too. It's not just, how we're taught, just like, books and like reading and mugging up things, or how we call it ratta. It's
Yeah.
not that. It has the potential to change lives. And that's what we don't see. But yeah, so that's me, the crazy bioactivist. I hope that makes it a little bit more easier to understand why I call myself one.
Yeah. I mean, very beautifully put, if I must say,
I know.
because like the way you told about your childhood experiences, everyone's formative years are very crucial in shaping who they are and their beliefs and their outlook in life as they grow older. So, as you said, maybe you had that spark in you all along, and it just was waiting to manifest itself in this way at this point in time. It was like there's a right place and a right time for everything, is what they say. So, it took that shape and form. And being an outlier is always fun. Take absolute pride and joy in the fact that you ask for petri dishes and other science stuff, because like I said, you're actually bringing about change. There is only a handful of people who are doing that. So being an outlier is, maybe at that point in time it may seem a little questionable, or you may doubt yourself, but once you start seeing the results rolling in, you feel that, what, it's worth it. Like, my efforts are paying off, and this is what I, like you said, you found your drive, so it's pushing you to do more. And I mean, you're still so young, so there's so much for you to, hack into, and take charge of things, make it your own, and bring some positivity that I feel we are sorely lacking right now in all regards. So that's pretty fun.
Thank you so much. Yes, I think one of my quotes like that motivate me is, you need to take unconventional paths to reach unconventional success. So yeah, it's fun being unconventional, to be very honest.
Yeah, and science obviously seems very jargony, very heavy, but like you said, once you start seeing the practical application of things, it starts blowing your mind. Like, even, for example, if someone reads something about like space, you just seem a bit disconnected at that point, because you're like, it's 1,000 miles away. How does it matter? But then you see maybe a James Webb telescope coming and clicking pictures of the most recent galaxy that it has found, and NASA is posting about it, or maybe ISRO's Chandrayaan. Obviously, it was such a big success, and seeing those projects come to life, where you can maybe see it, feel it, hear it, interact with it in a way that you possibly couldn't imagine, it starts shifting your perspective, and you're like, oh my god, like, there's a reason why things are complicated, or there's a reason why science is so nuanced, it's so layered, because it's part of a system which probably a lot of us are still trying to understand. It's ever evolving, but yeah, like, even on a grassroots level, who would imagine that mushrooms have the capacity to change lives? Like, that's insane. It's, if you just propose it, people might laugh at you. People feel like, yeah, that's ridiculous. But then, like I mentioned, you see the faces behind the ones who are growing the mushrooms. Obviously, your team who's working every day and trying to make this happen for, all the women involved, and obviously now the prison inmates who are also involved in changing lives. That impact is tangible. So, people start obviously get connected to your cause that way. They're like, yeah, this, no matter what I spend time or how I do it, maybe mushroomology in a way is, kind of taking that effort in and molding it in a way which is actually helping people.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty fun. And mushroomology obviously is all about mushrooms and science. So I think it's called mycotech, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, it's called
Yeah,
Mycelium.
mycotech. So what are, again, like, mycotech, I feel, is something which is, not spoken about a lot, or it's pretty underrated on the down low. Everyone's, talking about AI. AI is on everyone's lips nowadays. So what is exactly, let's take a pause on AI and talk about mycotech, what it is, any recent developments that, maybe you think are noteworthy that everyone should know about in this
Yeah.
field.
Yeah, sure. So, microtechnology is one of my biggest fascinations in life. So, I'm so sorry if I come off overly passionate right now, but yeah. So, microtech, as you may have guessed, is basically mycology and technology. So it's technology that leverages the properties of mycelium, which is the vegetative part of fungi. Okay, so for me, the best way to understand it is that it's nature's internet. And this comes from the fact that, mycelium can connect plant roots through mycorrhizal networks, which are responsible for, nutrient exchange and also actually have the ability to transmit electric impulses. Actually, very interesting research there is that mycelium actually has the ability to communicate up to 50 different words and patterns, so when I read that, I was just like, I was really taken aback. I was like, wow. Because think of it, maybe like what could the future look like? You could probably have mycelium helping you communicate to nature. I mean, there's so much potential there. And yeah, in terms of like, commercial innovations, we have mycelium-based leather. And, unlike traditional leather, this biomaterial is cultivated in, lab conditions using fungal mycelium. So it results in like a fully biodegradable, customizable product. So yeah, it's a sustainable alternative to, multiple industries, and it's gaining a lot of traction, in industries like fashion and automotive. And it offers like a green solution with a fraction of like the environmental footprint. So yeah, and in also one more, another research that I read, I think a month ago it came out, which was about, biohybrid soft robots. Actually, researchers at Cornell University are integrating, mycelium with robotic systems. So what they've been able to do is they're using like the natural signals to control movement. So think a literal robot that has nothing else but mycelium and it can move. It's that cool. And yeah, so it basically creates these robots that can respond to environmental stimuli in real time. And you're basically having like a mimicking biological systems. You're creating this nervous system of sorts. And yeah, it's taking a pioneering step towards, autonomous and adaptive machines that are blending biology with technology. And yeah, it really doesn't end there if I have to go on and on, but we're just scratching like it's like the surface on its capabilities. Like certain fungi, species like of microspora fungi have demonstrated this, unique ability to actually degrade synthetic polymers. So, okay, to say it like this, they can eat plastic. So, and these plastics you can't really degrade. Like previous techniques have failed. Like they take about 10 years to even degrade. So this is really, really cool because, it's taking us a step forward in our fight against plastic pollution. And, even in terms of like carbon sequestration, mycelium acts as like an effective carbon sink. So it definitely is the champion of nature when it comes to addressing climate change. So yeah, if I have to take, like, if one thing you have to take away from mycelium is that it's definitely a powerhouse of possibilities. Like, it's just really about using our imagination to see what the future looks like. Because the future, in my opinion, I'm just gonna have to say it, is definitely fungi. So yeah, so future is fungi and women.
I mean, mushrooms and robots. Okay. I think I've heard it all today, at least. That is crazy. Like, yeah, I mean, mycelium network. I have, just on a very topical level, I have come across what mycelium network is, and the whole it resembles a nervous system. In fact, I read a couple of years ago, a guy tried making music through mushrooms using the myotechnology, because like you said, they have the stimuli for it. So he was giving them very slight vibrations, I guess, and they were responding back to it, and he harnessed them in a way that it sounded like a song, which was again like very mind blowing to me. I was like, my god, I mean, people and their creativity just never ceases to amaze me. Like they can go to such extents to deep dive into things and find out that there's much more that we are missing out on. But yeah, microtechnology, I think, should also be the talk of the town. Yeah, I mean, everyone's hung up about AI. I think AI needs to just take the backseat for a while and chill, and Micro just needs to come ahead and kind of drive the car, so to say.
Yeah, I mean, why keep them separate? What if they just combine and you have like this microtech AI combination? I mean, with what's happening, there's no like limits. People could be combining with fungi fall, it's just, there's so much happening and it's mind blowing.
People combining with AI just reminds me of the Last of Us show. I don't know if you've heard of it. It was actually a video game based on which they made a show But obviously, fungi plays more of a villainous role than a positive role model there. Cordyceps, so to say, kind of take over everyone, and it's like a zombie apocalypse kind of a situation, which is again very like fascinating and creepy to think of it. But yeah, like barring pop culture references, knowing that maybe mushrooms also have the energy and the synergy to combine themselves with something like technology, AI, even people, and their obvious medicinal values that have been there for so many years that have been known. Yeah, like honestly, it's just doors opening everywhere, and people just waiting to, I guess, kind of capture that moment, capitalize on it, and see where it leads people on a maybe community level and even on an ecological level, because the repercussions of this ecologically will be great, since we are already in a very fragile state right now, given climate change and everything.
Yeah,
So
I completely agree. Yeah, so that's actually what I'm working on. Like my research area is also around mycotech, actually mycotech and sustainable materials. So
hmm
yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, actually, I was like deep diving into this world of fungi and mycelium, and like it was just initial like wow, this this big this huge door opened, and it had such endless possibilities. But I quickly realized that while there's so much happening in research, most of it stayed locked away in academic papers and high-tech labs. And I wanted to break out of that mold and find practical real-world applications that didn't require that kind of equipment and fancy equipment. And that's when I discovered mycelium leather. So companies like Mycoworks and Bold Threads were, already creating these amazing sustainable materials that looked and felt just like leather, all made from mushrooms. And I was just completely inspired. I was like, okay, but I didn't have those access to, those high-tech labs. So that's when I decided to, go DIY. And I started experimenting with literally anything I could have put my hands on, from seaweed, potato skins, even like old newspapers, to see if I could probably grow mycelium using usable materials and waste materials. And by then, I had turned a storeroom in my house into a makeshift lab with jars of mysterious experiments scattered everywhere, operating with honestly a mad scientist kind of energy. And yeah, and after months of tinkering, I actually managed to create mycelium based materials, including myco leather. And that was a
okay,
huge
wow.
moment. But I felt, there was so much more potential, especially in construction. Because so that's when the idea of, micro bricks hit me. And I began developing bricks using agriculture waste from Mushroomology's mushroom cultivation process. So I was channeling the waste back into this research. And micro bricks basically are lightweight, they're durable, and they have this amazing insulation properties. Plus, they're literally grown and not manufactured. So it's really interesting there. And I realized that this could really, be a game changer, especially in India. Because in India, while, we have where traditional construction methods are actually contributing like the most amount and contributing significantly to carbon emissions, it's this research is really important. And during my research, I also came across MycoHab, which is a project that built an entire house in Namibia using mycelium bricks. And I
Wow.
was so fascinated and just decided to reach out to Professor Andres Motion from MIT, one of the co-founders of MycoHab. And I wasn't expecting a response, but to my surprise, he replied and took a genuine interest to my work. Since then, Professor Mershon, Mr. Demetrius Irenis, and the entire MycoHab team have, become incredible mentors, and their support has really been crucial in shaping my understanding of micromaterials, and I'm so grateful to them. Yeah, and I am now working on my second venture, actually, a biomaterial startup, which is still in stealth mode, but with the idea to co-create with nature and produce new biomaterials. So we're also exploring the idea of carbon tokenization for materials, which could revolutionize how resources are tracked and managed in a supply chain, ensuring that there's transparency and sustainability. But yeah, to just take a step back, my like connection with nature runs deeper than their practical uses. I'm also fascinated, by biomimicry, the idea that we can learn from nature's designs. This has been the guiding, like this has really been the guiding philosophy for our startup. Nature has been solving complex problems for billions of years. And I believe that, by aligning our designs and technologies with natural principles, we can create not just better materials, but a better way of living in harmony with the world around us. So it's really not just about, okay, making cool products, but it's also about reshaping how we live and how we live, how we build, and how we interact with the environment. Yeah, so after all, nature really, in my opinion, nature has been showing us the way the whole way long. And all we just need to do is be willing to follow it. One mycelium thread at a time, maybe. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, nature, as you you put it across, it's been solving problems for eons. And honestly, we need to be humble servants and take inspiration from nature and apply those lessons in whatever way we can, instead of maybe thinking of an alternative or trying to overtake nature, because I feel that's a bit foolish. I mean, nature is nature, there is some power to it. So yeah, like I mean, biomimicry also is it's very fascinating, and mushroomology obviously is leveraging it, and mycotechnology as well. Myco leather sounds fascinating. Again, a nice alternative to maybe the faux leathers that are made from plastic and other kinds of material which are not really sustainable. So yeah, I mean, you have really shown me that there is so much mushrooms are doing, and I need to catch myself up on what's happening in the myco world, so to say. So
I hope.
that's really fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope like mushroomology can show you like its potential in creating change, and my new venture can really show you the scientific aspects of it and the microtechnology and that its
Yeah.
potential there. So yeah, I am very, as I said, I warned beforehand. I'm all things fungi,
Mhm.
but yeah, and now it's the future. So
Yeah. I mean, you said that you have the new venture coming up, stealth mode, can't speak, confidential, agreed. And Mushroomology is going to hit stores. But apart from that, are there any other exciting future plans for Mushroomology? Anything else bubbling that you can share with us and our community?
yeah, so many things actually. So I like to think of my journey as never ending adventure. So right now in India, I think there's a huge, push for make in India, which is fantastic. But I want to take it even further to innovate in India. I believe there's a lot of untapped potential here, not just in microtech, but in biotech and science in general. And who better, honestly, to lead this revolution than the young, because they're free to imagine without limits and they're unburdened by the, that's impossible mindset. So
Hmm.
yeah, and for me, science, in my opinion, really shouldn't be trapped to the confines of a shiny lab and, those dense academic papers. And my mission really is to bring it into the streets, into schools, into every curious mind. And I want to. I want to see kids growing mushrooms in their backyards and tinkering with nature as easily as they, play video games. And, I've been lucky to have support from my school, but we really do need to start young to reconnect with nature and to create those spaces, for exploration and experimentation. We spend so much time, especially my generation is at fault for, scrolling and consuming information. But where's the time for, observation?
Hmm.
For just sitting quietly and like, wondering about the magic of a raindrop. I see it's about to rain. Or
Yeah,
intricate
it's
patterns.
thundering here as well.
Yeah, I can see the background. I can just look out of the window and it's like all good. But yeah, it's like look out, look in through the window. Why don't you see the leaves, see the intricate patterns? Like it's really interesting. I mean,
Hmm.
it's interesting, while Elon Musk is looking to the stars for answers, which is very cool. I feel like we need to start looking down right here on Earth. Nature has been doing R&D for billions of years, and it's got some pretty impressive solutions up its sleeves. I believe
Yeah.
we really need to be more biocentric. We've inherited this Earth, and it's been here before us, and it will be here after us. So yeah, and that's really important. And actually, speaking of AI, even though I touched upon this slightly, I also think about our future with AI. We're on the brink of this new evolutionary phase, moving towards a world where AI may not just be a tool. It may become a sentient partner. And I spend a lot of time actually wondering, what this could look like. Like, how do we work with AI in a way that complements our natural world rather than competes with it? Like you said, why do we have to always think of it as a devilish thing that we're constantly competing against, right? And yeah, and that also brought me to the area of, genetic engineering. And right now, I'm also exploring how AI and genetic engineering could combine to create a new era of biomaterial. And that's all there. And then there's also, and I also want to talk about like one area that's actually super close to my heart, which
Yeah.
is the role of women in science and nature. In our communities, women have always been, the silent keepers of knowledge, nurturing, both family and land. But they've often kind of been pushed to the background. We really, really need to give them the confidence to step into that spotlight, but as innovators and as scientists. And there's almost this mystical bond between women and nature because they're both nurturing and both resilient. And yeah, I really want to celebrate and amplify that connection. I've actually been incredibly fortunate to be working with iGEM Girls Lab, where we're working on like a broader mission to advance women representation in STEM. So we're not just talking about science, we're redefining what it means to be a woman in a STEM field, breaking down barriers and, really having those crucial conversations. One of our last conversations were on unconscious bias. So yeah, and okay, I hate to do this, but I have to do this. There's no way of controlling it. I am a huge Shah Rukh Khan fan, so I can't help but channel this.
Okay.
His famous line to explain me and like what I think about what I'm going to be doing next is that, in his famous line in Om Shanti Home, he says, they say that if you truly desire something from the heart, the whole universe conspires to help you achieve it. And
Hmm.
I really believe that because it's been true for me. I mean, from the early days of mushroomology to the research I'm doing now, like it's been a growth. And I probably could not have imagined that. Like I also thinking of like when I started mushroomology to where I'm now, there was no way of thinking that this would happen. But it did, and the universe conspired for me. So really, if you do chase your dreams with that passion and that curiosity, the universe has this beautiful and wonderful way of like opening doors for you that you didn't even know about.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I really, really strongly believe that. And that goes out to everybody. Like you really do need to follow your passion and don't be worried about you. It may look like there's no way through. Like it may just look like, you reach a dead end, but there is a door hidden and the universe will make it possible for you. You will see that door. You just really have to have that passion for it. But yeah, so here I am in terms of future plans, with multiple roads to travel. And yeah, I've got a head full of dreams, a heart definitely kind of full of wonder and curiosity. And I'll be very honest, I have no idea where this path leads. But that's what makes it exciting for me. And I love the fact that I don't know where it leads because I'm not constricted to anything then. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I mean, who doesn't love a bit of surprise on the way?
right.
And it may be a pleasant one for that matter that it's supposed to be enjoyed at that point in time. It's supposed to be explored at that point in time. And as I said, you're pretty young. I mean, there's so many opportunities, so many paths that you're not only carving, but are also laid out that you can probably, walk along and, learn from other people, imbibe those values on the way. So yeah, the future is always exciting that way.
Yes, it really definitely is. And yeah, we all don't have any clue what the future holds right now. But the way we're going, we may just have a completely different world. But
No, but so far so good, right? Like obviously, maybe 4 years back, if someone came and told you that you're going to be the founder of a company that's going to uplift so many women, or maybe like 4 5 years, or you'd just be like, no, probably not. But then here you are, like fast forward to present day, and you're doing pretty well. As you said, you've grown from when you first started. So it's like you have to maintain that balance of living in the moment but being optimistic about what the future holds for you as well.
yeah,
It's a tightrope that you have to walk on, so to say. But I think you're doing a good job, and obviously lots of good wishes to Mushroomology. And I'm really really it filled my heart to know that that there is a venture out there which is so invested in people, women, and nature, things which honestly are dear to my heart, like personally speaking. So yeah, and it's coming from someone who is from a generation younger, who's brighter, who's, more tenacious and proactive, and, so many things. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. I'm really grateful. Thank you for all of those kind words. But I have to say, I'm nothing without, the team, the women that I've worked with. All of it has shaped me, the support I've received from my family, and all of it. And yeah, I'm really, really happy and really humbled to be in the opportunity and to receive the opportunities I've had. But it's also, I think, important for me to say that even to other young entrepreneurs who want to start, you going like I felt insecure multiple times. I felt like I was an imposter multiple times. And I had times where I was asking myself, what am I doing here? And yeah, and you will, and for anyone starting off young, you're going to feel that. And you always think, it's the vastness of your experiences that matter. But it's actually not. It's the depth of the experiences that matter. So if you really have, even in a small initiative, if you've done it with passion and purpose, you will create ripples. So you've got that passion, you just really need to run for it and run with it, and everything else will follow. And that happened to me, and I'm so, so grateful for it. But yeah, and I really want others to know that it can happen to anyone if they just have the enthusiasm. And your enthusiasm, you can just be that light that draws other people to your cause. And really, it's just you have to have that dedication because things will get tough. There will be challenges. Yeah, I mean, I've had a great road, but I know that there are going to be challenges even further. That I've had challenges, but if when you I've learned this fact that when you, and I've been told this fact that when you reach a challenge, when you are like when you feel a point of failure, like you fail or you've fallen down, celebrate that, because that means you're one step closer to success, because the faster you fail, the faster you succeed. So yeah, it's really fun, and I really think people should be starting young, because entrepreneurship is a wild ride. It's full of ups and downs, but it's also extremely rewarding. And I think young people have the ability. You don't, like, a lot of people think, you're in school, you have to wait for this to end, but don't wait for a time to come. If I'd waited for a time to come, I don't know if I would have got the opportunities I've got right now. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's the time is yours whenever you feel like you can do it. Whenever you have that passion to do it, just do it, is really
Yeah.
what yeah. And so if anyone listening really wants to, work on this, or if anyone's interested in, creating social change, as future plans are also like looking to collaborate with, NGOs. We want to extend, our programs to include, health programs about health, programs about microloans, um, and even, about climate action and change into, our existing programs. So we've been collaborating with a few NGOs, and I truly believe change has to be done together. So I'm always open to collaborations. We'll also be opening up for volunteers. So if anyone's, wanting to like join in, please keep an eye out for our call. But yeah, and for science enthusiasts also, I think for science enthusiasts and fungi lovers out there, I would also want to say that my inbox is always open, because if you have a question, need advice, or like even if you just want to geek out over mushrooms, like we've geeked out in this call,
Yeah.
we're here for it. I'm passionate about fostering this community where
Yeah.
creativity thrives, right, and ideas grow. And yeah, and I really want to spark this larger movement also around citizen science, because that's also extremely important to me, like bringing that science out of the labs and into our hands. And I believe, if tech companies can be founded in garages, why can't biotech companies be founded in the backyard? So yeah,
Hmm.
if anyone's involved in this space, or have ideas, stories, or projects they want to share, but I would invite you to use the hashtag of backyard science, tag me on LinkedIn, and let's create a ripple effect together, where we like amplify each other's voices. And all big changes happen with really small actions. So yeah, I truly believe that everyone together can really grow into something incredible.
Samaya, if you don't mind, we'll just pick, one or two questions from the live chat. We have had a couple of audience members who have dropped in some messages. So Aniket is asking us, what has been the most significant challenge you've faced in your mission, and how did you overcome it?
Of course. So first, I mean, when we started working, you're working in a new area, and you want more people to join, and you want, more women to join your work. I think this question relates to Mushroomology, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, so
Yeah.
Mushroomology, when we started off, um, it's a new thing. Mushrooms are a new thing, right? So you always feel that, initial amount of hesitancy. And you don't feel like not many women wanted to join at the first, in our first workshop. There was a lot of questions. There were a lot of questions, though, I have to say, that they actually wanted to know more about it. But of course, there was still hesitancy. And there were a lot of, because you're working in areas where there's a lot of rules about what women do, and there are these traditional gender stereotypes that exist. So you're also breaking through that when you're working on a mission like ours. So yeah, a lot, I remember, when we used to have, books. So like, where you're walking in, you have to write your names. And they would write their husband's names and just put their name. Like they may not even, sometimes they wouldn't even put their name. They would put their husband names, and then they'd just write wife of this. Even though the question was just like your name, because, we wanted to know how many women we had. And then, they would be scared to speak up in sessions, if they had questions. And when you're trying to teach a new skill, it's really important to have that engagement. But when but then we started talking more, and like, I tried to speak to them individually. We didn't like went up to each woman individually. My team worked, and when we did it in front of them, we did practical. We didn't want to just show it to them. We worked with them, like we had them work with us, and then you saw that smile slowly light up, and they were like, oh, this is interesting, and oh, this is something I can do.
Yeah.
And that was how we kind of went through that challenge, and we went past that challenge. And now so many people, women, because you start with one woman, you explain it to them, you see that happiness come, and then they spread that happiness themselves, and you see other people learn from that person, and they become role models. And then we've had this network now with 300 women, and I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, so that's I think one challenge that we faced initially, and now we're here.
That's a great answer. I'll pick up another question, which is very, funky. I really liked it. If you could invent a new mushroom variety, what unique feature would it have?
Okay, how wild do you have to go for this question? Because there's so many things mushrooms can do. I feel like if I give you a property, that probably be a mushroom that exists with that property, with the amount of wide range of mushrooms we have. But
Think of the wildest thing possible. I mean, maybe a particular property you would like to see in a mushroom.
I was just about to say, mushrooms that, allow you to become super smart, or like become this like really like academic machines, and like, be able to do everything all at once. But then I realized that actually kind of there is a property of mushroom that ties in with that. So you see my confusion, because like, yeah, there like so many different things mushrooms are doing. But for me, that's a really interesting question. And what does not exist is what I have to think about. But I don't know, a mushroom that allows you to maybe multiply, like, become more people. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know, because I'm trying to think what it doesn't do. And I mean, what if we have like a mushroom that allows us to, or what if it helps you combine with fungi? So you get that, oh yeah, that's the best option. A mushroom that allows you to communicate with nature. Because think of the amount of things, instead of having to find the properties that, look through nature and do your experiments, nature tells you the solutions. I mean, yeah, that's what I would go for. That's my answer. But, a mushroom that allows you to communicate with nature. I mean, mycelium does, but maybe like directly allow you to communicate. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, learning the language of nature at that level will be literally earth-shattering. So
Maybe we'd be able to
crazy.
stop climate change. I mean, with where we're going, we need it.
Yeah. One last question from my side. Since you are a person who is so passionate about STEM, and we obviously know that there is such an underrepresentation of women in STEM, is there any role model, a female role model, especially in STEM, that you have looked up to, who has, maybe inspired you along this micro journey for mushroomology as well?
I mean, there's so many people. I can't really tell you one role model. I mean, there's so many women in so many areas doing so many amazing things. And I feel like every day, I look at a new person's new research, and they become a new role model to me, right? So like we had with Anne Verjood, who's like the president of Belgium's Women in Science. Like I had a conversation with her, or like, um, Miss Jing Zhang, who's like a founder of anthropology, reaching out to all these women, they're all role models for me. Any woman who's really working in STEM and is being able to like actually stay there and work is a role model for me, because they're doing something that a lot of, people think can't be done. And even though, we've moved very ahead at that thing, right now, in this area, I mean, there's still a lot more room to grow. So that's my answer. I don't want to specify one woman. I mean, there's so many women. My own, like, if we're not looking at STEM also, like even the Didis, the women in my network that are working are my role models, because they show you true hard work and they show you the adaptability to change, because we're so scared of change. I don't even know why. Like, now it's the point, like if you say something and people don't laugh at you and call you crazy, that means you're not doing something interesting enough. So really, yeah, their ability to change, to learn and to grow, like from going to, a traditional area to a new area, that's what role models are. So yeah, I don't know if I exactly answered your question, but that is my answer.
No, I mean, that's okay. Like, I understand where you're coming from. And as I said, there's such an underrepresentation of women in STEM. So any woman who is basically, able to pull down the barriers and kind of mark her entry into the field, she automatically becomes an inspiration to, every girl around her or every woman around her. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, this was a really, really good talk, Samaya. I'm
Thank you so
so
much.
glad that you decided to come on Thinkly and, give us a small little glimpse into the micro world, into mushroomology, into your creative brain, and, take us along this fascinating journey of how mushrooms are going to change the world. I'm uh, I'm really confident that our community has benefited from, your expertise and your knowledge and obviously your enthusiasm. It's really great to see bright minds come and, make positive change around us. So thank you so much and all the best to Mushroomology.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, Thinkly team, for inviting me here. I have had a great conversation today. And thank you so much, Aishwarya, for being such a wonderful host and geeking out with me with fungi. Yes, thank you so much. I've had an amazing conversation today. And yeah, I hope I've convinced a few more people to look to the mycology way of life. But yeah, or the nature biomimicry way of life. But yeah.
Yeah. We'll be dropping the link to Mushroomology on the community so that our community members can check out the website and other details that you think they can connect with. We'll be dropping it in the chat now.
Yeah, they
So
can
yeah,
definitely reach out to me on my LinkedIn too, if they want to personally reach out to me, or just on Mushroomology.
yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.